know where everybody is, so I think we'll start. So we are, so I'm Peter Mason with DDS. I'm overseeing the ARPA initiative. And just want to remind everybody that this is a public meeting. So as such, when you are called upon, please use your name and where you're from. And if anybody's here from the public, there's no public comments section, but if you want to, there's on our website under the ARPA initiative is a email address. You can submit all your questions and we will answer it at that time. With that, let's start with the minutes. Did everybody get a chance to read the minutes?
Yep.
Oh, those were from before the last one that got canceled, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Mhm.
Yeah. March 2nd.
Okay. Anybody have any questions, comments, concerns about those minutes?
Nope.
I'm looking at what day is it? The minutes
March
from?
2nd.
Yeah.
I don't know if I.
Yeah, it was from March 2nd.
Oh, okay.
Kathy, you all set?
Yes, I'm all set.
All right. Anybody have any? Are you still reading them, Heather? If you are,
I
let me know.
can't. I'm sorry, I can't find them. I have everything up to, yeah, I have the February minutes, but I don't have the March. But you could do it without me. I'll try to find it. I don't know
I
why.
don't
Did
think
Pam send them out or did you?
No, I think Pam sent them out.
This is Brian. I didn't receive them, but I found them online. So,
Okay.
Oh,
yeah.
that's what it was.
Oh, I thought she sent them out. Oh.
No wonder I can't find them.
Hold on, let me just. Yeah, the last time I got anything from Pam was the 1st. Oh, yeah, so she sent him out on the 1st.
No, she
Oh, no,
sent
that was the
216.
agenda. No,
That
I'm
was the
sorry, that was the
February,
agenda. She
yeah.
didn't send him out. Okay.
All right. I got them on up here if people want to read these.
Okay.
This is Mary Pat from Kennedy Collective. Peter, when it talks about the global communication in the newsletter, would
Mhm.
that be what we just received today? Is that considered the
No, there was a
newsletter?
newsletter went out. There should have been a newsletter that went out to all the agencies. That it went out to individuals and you guys should have got a copy of it.
Okay.
Peter, this is Brian Holmes. Did all of us get a copy or just agencies?
Agencies did, and then individuals and families should have got one. So
Yeah, I haven't seen one yet.
you haven't.
No. Where would it come from? If it might have got trapped in spam or something? Or?
No, it should have been mailed to the house.
Oh,
And so it would have been to, it was probably to the house and would have been the primary guardian.
yeah. Oh, that's us. We haven't seen anything, Peter. So
All right.
So I would suggest calling your case manager because I don't know, and I asked that
I don't know
because,
who that is anymore. We just lost ours and they've never told us who the new one is. So
all right, so
we're
I can.
without a case manager right now.
All right, so then I'll have to,
But,
let me.
Peter, not all families are getting things, right?
All right.
So not
Why
every,
wo-
I know this is Tammy from Central Office DDS. I know that not all families are getting something. I haven't received anything either. But this is targeted to only specific families with individuals in specific places.
Okay.
I thought
Okay.
the newsletter was supposed to go out to everybody. I know the other one, the survey was only to go out to individuals who had somebody in a congregate setting, but the newsletter is supposed to go out to everybody. If you guys didn't get it, then we'll need to know that. So Tammy, you should probably talk to Lauren to find out how come you're not on the list. Now, some of the problems is that we only can go by what's in cameras as the address. So if the address isn't correct there, bless you. If the address isn't correct, then it would not have gone out. So, Kathy, did you get it?
No, I did not get it. And we've lived in the same house for 40 years, so.
Yeah, we've been here 10
Um,
years, so.
This is Mary Pat from Kennedy Collective. I did receive it on March 28th.
Yeah, it should have gone out at that point. Yeah.
Okay.
Kathy.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Heather, did you get it?
I'm pretty sure I read it. I remember.
Yeah,
that.
it's under the DDS alerts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I lived in the same place and I know cameras is correct for my daughter, so.
All right, so I'll send something to Lauren, our communication person, and find out how come the three of you didn't get it.
Thank you.
I'm not too sure, so that is not good. I know we sent it all in the mail hard copy, so everyone would get it.
Yeah,
Great.
you know, Peter, it's interesting because if it went out to all the families, I think I would have gotten some phone calls,
Mm,
you know, and I've heard nothing from the families. I got one call when all of this first started from one parent, and that's it. So I'm not quite sure it's all getting out there.
well, I mean, we sent it in the mail, and I don't think they've come back, so we'll have to find out where they went. All right.
Sometimes bulk mail takes a long time.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's finish this and then we can. I'm going too fast. Let me know.
Peter, this is Brian Holmes again. In that paragraph's taken them a while to put together. The activities is what DDS needs to change the systems. It's taken them time to put it together. I haven't seen any document about that, which they said we would have before our next meeting because we skipped the last meeting. Did that not go out?
Yeah, it's taken a little bit longer than we did. We
Okay.
met with Deloitte on a week ago, and we had leadership come up and look at priorities and stuff. So that was all done. So now we're going to try to get that out. And so I know that Deloitte's working on that
Okay.
document that we'll be sending out. So
The spicier document is on its way, yeah?
it's working itself through the system.
Okay. Just want to make sure I didn't miss another communication.
Nope,
That's
you didn't
all.
miss that one. Nope.
Okay, thanks.
It's Heather from Marrakesh. It says Heather will submit a WIT page.
A wit
So I'm
page,
thinking
yeah.
a witty page about shared living. But I didn't know I was definitely doing that, so I will.
All right, let me. I think that I don't know if I have the copy online, but I have this is my copy, so. Let me know when everybody's done.
Oh, we don't see it.
We don't see it now.
anymore.
Huh?
We
Don't
don't see it
see it.
anymore.
Did it leave? Where'd it go?
We thought you took it down for a minute. You were
Oh,
playing.
no. Do you need me to share it again? Ah,
I think we were pretty much at the end of it, right?
yeah.
Yeah,
think
there's not
so.
much more.
Yeah.
Here we go. Okay.
Alrighty.
Everybody all set?
Yep.
Okay. All right, all those, does anybody have any comments or questions or concerns regarding the minutes that you just all read?
Oh,
Nope.
Okay. Can I have a motion to accept?
yeah, I'll make a motion to accept. It's Brian Holmes, parent.
Great. Okay, have a second? It's down. No?
Sec-
No
second.
Oh, thanks.
Second.
All right, all those in favor, raise your hand. Tammy, say aye if you're in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna start with Deloitte giving us an update, and Julia is here.
Peter, before we move on, this is Mary Pat, real quick. That, the newsletter,
Yeah,
it's not posted on the website, like under latest news. And that probably would be a good place for it to be,
okay,
just as another place to put it so people will see it.
okay, yep,
Sorry.
no problem. Okay, all right, now you can go.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Julia Oak from Deloitte. And as Peter mentioned, I'm going to be giving a quick update on some of the transition plans that have been submitted. So feel free to jump in as I go, but otherwise I'll kind of just keep rolling and giving a high-level overview, and then I'll provide some details, focusing on some of the residential plans we've received. So very excitingly, we've received a total of 8 plans, and we have had a mix across regions as well as types of transitions between residential and day. So of those 8 plans, we've had 3 from the north, 3 from the south, 2 from the west, and then 4 residential transition plans, 2 day transition plans, and 2 providers that submitted plans for both residential and day transitions. So I know we're really excited that we have kind of a good representation across different types of plans. And in addition to that, we've also seen a pretty big variety in terms of the scope of the transition. So some plans transitioning just a couple of people. We have one plan that was submitted that included 11 CRS settings. So again, we're able to see sort of a wide variety of approaches of different providers. And then given that this is the Res Committee, we have had a mix of plans for CLA and CRS transitions, as well as some plans that are using supportive housing models. And the other thing to note as the summary is that some plans are using the STEP funding to advance work that's already ongoing or kind of support things that are in the pipeline, and then also providers that are using the STEP incentives to start new initiatives, hire more staff, that kind of thing. And any questions, that's sort of the high level summaries. Any questions before I go into some more details for some of the res plans? Okay, so I'll kind of provide a little bit more detail for each of the residential plans. So one transition plan from the West region, this was a large transition with 11 CRS settings included. They're closing some settings, bringing people in from the wait list with greater behavioral or medical needs, and are able to adjust staffing based on the needs of specific individuals. A lot of the folks they're planning to transition have already expressed interest. I think after the individuals heard initial things about STEP, the provider said that they've expressed interest, and the provider's already working on recruiting additional staff, and is looking to add remote supports and assistive technology as a way to just sort of help people be a little bit more independent and use the staff in-person supports sort of as efficiently as possible. And they're meeting in terms of sort of the internal process for the transition. This agency is meeting every 2 weeks during the first 60 days to provide support, and also sort of so they're staying in connection with individuals and their families, since that's sort of the window where the providers keeping the vacancies open based on the incentives, so the individuals can return to the original setting if the new setting, is not a great fit. And moving on, the next plan to highlight, this was in the South region, a provider that submitted both a day and a residential plan. The residential plan is focused on this agency's CLA. So they're planning to close the CLA, and residents will either transition to an IHS or move to another CLA or CRS, depending on individuals' preferences. And this provider, they're using the transition house model. So it'll sort of be an intermediary transition house before they move into the more independent setting. And to help individuals throughout the process, they're planning on doing classes and some education just to help folks feel a little bit more prepared in terms of travel training, healthy cooking, and that type of thing. And the transition house, this has been sort of in the works for a while, so the STEP incentives are just helping to enhance that effort and push it forward. And their day transition is focused on GSC and group day supports, and they're working to maintain the plan is to maintain the group day supports for fewer participants, and then potentially restructure for individuals with more significant medical or behavioral needs. And they're also going to be working to add project search as well. And one interesting thing to highlight from this plan is they're developing hubs to help build work skills. This will be focused on people with greater behavioral or medical needs and will sort of be like a drop-in where folks can come to build work skills and that type of thing and get some additional support on an ongoing or as needed basis. Then the third residential transition plan to highlight is in the North region. This provider is also using a transition home model and is looking to gradually transition 3 of their individuals they support from CLA into IHS apartments. Excuse me. They're also using some of the additional some of the additional ARPA incentives. They've applied for the supportive housing grant. And if they're awarded that, they're going to sort of integrate that into their efforts. And they're also looking on using creating plans to utilize assistive technology and remote monitoring, again, just to help promote greater independence. And similarly, they're in the process of applying for an assistive technology grant that's through the broader ARPA initiative. And then the final residential transition plan to highlight in the North. This is one provider that's using STEP as a way to sort of accelerate efforts that were already underway. So their plan includes 3 CLAs with individuals transitioning to CCHs, IHS, and a newly opened cluster IHS. And one interesting thing they're doing is they're helping to support individuals to tour new settings in advance and are creating a process where folks can meet potential roommate in advance, see if it might be a good fit, and sort of have some of that, make sure it's a good match for a roommate before folks actually move in. So sort of like a meet and greet kind of before you move in with someone. And then similar to some of the other plans, looking to use AT assessments and AT and remote supports just to help increase independence in some of the more community-based settings. And the last thing to highlight from that plan is they're going to be having a drop-in center that can help with socialization and minimize isolation for the individuals that do transition. Again, so there's sort of a hub that folks can go to get some more of that social interaction and time to be with friends or meet with other people. So I know that was a lot of information. Happy to answer questions. I see Tammy, you have a hand up.
This is Tammy Venegay from DDS. I'm concerned about all these places closing to open up these supported housing. Right now, I just had to do a presentation to OPM and DDS and DCF about trying to get housing for people 18 to 23. We have only 30, well, not only, it's 30. We made over 219 referrals and already have 114 denials from group homes. Most of these individuals do need this congregate level of setting care, and we are closing all of it down. And DDS is under pressure from DCF to take kids that are not committed at the age of 18, and we have no place to put them. We don't have places to put these kids that are 21, 22, and 23. So and I'm very happy and very supportive of all the stuff that we're doing with ARPA. I think it's great. But when the plans come in saying they're closing their CLAs to do this, it just means that the people that are getting services continue to get services, and people who don't have services continue not to get services. And so it's somewhat concerning to me when for 30 people, we can send out over 200 referrals and get over 100 and some denials back, and other agencies just aren't answering. So it's concerning when I hear all these plans are closing these CLAs to start these, because it's not helping. It's not helping our wait list. It's not helping. It's not supporting, I think, what the big picture was we're going to move people to be as independent as possible, which is great, which they should be. Like, I would love to see everybody live on their own and live very fulfilling lives in the community and not be lonely and have community connections. However, unfortunately, not everybody can live that way. And it looks like we're putting people who already have a lot of support into a different place with support and closing these. We're not backfilling. We're not using the additional money we are getting from these savings from this different type of to support other people. So I'm as happy as I am to hear these plans. I am somewhat concerned that they are closing places where additional individuals are not going to be served.
Hi, this is Mary Pat from Kennedy Collective. I absolutely agree with you, Tammy. But I think the other reason we have to look at why providers are looking to close homes, and we're doing it in one particular home, is we don't have enough staff to staff the homes that we've got. And we can't take additional people when we can't guarantee their health and safety. So it's a small home, but we're moving those 3 into other placements that we have available within our system. And we're just going to close that house up for a while. We may reopen it when the staffing situation gets better and we can then provide services, either to those kids that are aging out or to behavioral or medical, whatever the need may be at the time. But right now, we're dying on the vine with the staff.
This is Heather from Maricouch. Oh, I think Peter's trying to talk.
Sorry, I was on mute. So Mary Pat, this is Peter Mason. So what you're talking about isn't going to be part of the ARPA plan. You're
No.
proposing that outside of the ARPA plan.
Right.
I think I've seen a couple houses closed, but I haven't seen a major closure through the plans yet. So I don't know. I don't know how big that piece is going to be. A lot of the things I've seen is there's backfill. So I mean,
that's just not what I heard from what she said. She was saying that this person is going to close. They're going to close these 3 group homes and do this. They're going to close this group home and do that. I didn't hear backfill.
That's one agency that's trying to consolidate. We've only have 8 plans in now. You may be right that down the road that's what people are looking at, but I'm hearing a lot of people saying they're looking at how do they shift their resources as well. So I mean, I think it's going to be all over the board. I mean, I think the staffing piece is real out there, and if people don't have the staff to do this, it's getting very difficult. And we have probably at this point, I would say somewhere around 100 vacancies in CLAs, and if you're saying that people aren't taking them, there's a reason they're not taking them. Either the house isn't a match for those individuals, or they don't have the staff for it, and so.
And Peter, you guys may have 100. I have 100.
No,
Heather has 100. Everybody.
And I will say some of the denials are because they're planning on closing the homes. It's not that they're not a good match. Well, we're going to close this one. I'm just raising a concern. Like I said, Peter, I think this is a wonderful idea. I like what we're doing. And I know there's a staffing crisis. However, if every plan comes in like the ones we just heard, everybody's closing stuff, they're not backfilling. And that's really, really concerning, especially with the House bill that's going on right now, what's going on with DCF, what's going on with children's services. It's just a really big concern. And there's nothing a provider can do about it if there's no staffing. I totally understand that and I respect that. And we want people to be safe. We want them to be healthy. We want them to be happy. It's just if every plan comes in that they're going to close and not backfill like the ones we heard, then there's no growth. This is not helping. There's no growth for anybody anywhere, and it's not helping our situation. To put somebody with a Lawn 8 in their own apartment without the habilitation stuff that is needed, it's going to be very, very difficult. That's all I'm trying to say.
Gotcha. Julia?
Yeah, this is Julia Oak from Deloitte, and just want to provide a little bit of clarity because it might have gotten lost because I know it was a lot of details I ran through. But like Peter mentioned, we have had a mix, but so of the plans I highlighted, some are backfilling from the wait list. So the large transition in the West, that had the 11 CRS settings included. They are working to bring in people from the wait list or with greater behavioral and medical needs. And then there was another one, I just had it up, also in North, that was transitioning folks and taking people in from the wait list. So I know some of that detail might have gotten lost because I ran through it quickly, but I did just want to provide clarity there. But understand your concern, Tammy.
And Tammy, I think, you know, while your concern is legit and I'm not minimizing, also the hope is that if there's individuals that are in a couple of houses that wouldn't be able to have individuals there that have higher needs, the hope is that some of that will consolidate and that will open up the house for individuals who have more significant needs. I mean, staffing is going to be the issue. So, I mean, that's always going to be a part of it. But the other part is providers are hesitant to put individuals into a home that has a makeup that's not going to support that. So, you know, if we can start making some of that difference and start consolidating and being able to open up those other houses, I think that also would be a positive in terms of the direction as well. So. Heather?
So I feel the same about everything. We have to continue going with what we're doing. It's Heather from Marrakesh, sorry. But we do have this, it kind of, what Tammy's talking about with all those referrals kind of stopped me with my transition plan. And now we want to support, because we got 20 of those referrals, but we only have one bed. So I think what we should talk about is if these agents, like Mary said, there's Mary Pat, like maybe there's not a house that she's going to be using. Maybe if it's 4 beds or less, we could use it and then move people in there. Like maybe we should talk about living space more because, you know, we'd love to. We were going to submit something for the ARPA plan, but now it's like we want to get these kids placed because some of them are going to have nowhere to live in June. And so we kind of met and said we have to take care of these kids, these youth. So maybe we could do something like that. Like providers could say, hey, these are the homes we can't operate right now because we have too many vacancies, and throw them up. Maybe we could, you know, the people could rent them as CRSs, or the youth that are coming out could do that, because that is a problem. It's hard to be creative when it's like the answer is, and I understand it, you can't go from congregate to congregate, but what we're proposing is for these youth that are 21 to 23, that they come into a CRS type program, but then they have to leave. So it's just transitional. So I understand you're saying, you know, we can't get credit for ARPA, but I think we're being closed-minded about it if we're saying this is not your forever home. This is a home where you can learn, you know, so we could get more plans underway and stuff. You know, it's not a forever home. It's transitional living for kids that are going to be homeless otherwise, or in hospitals otherwise, or in step-down facilities and that kind of stuff. And I wouldn't do more than 3 people in a home. In this population, we have mistakenly one home with 6 people like that, and it's killing. Then that's taking half our bandwidth too, dealing with that home. So, you know, let's do it right and work together. And maybe it doesn't fit in ARPA at all because you can't do congregate to congregate. And I'm sure that's what you're going to say, so you don't have to say it. But why can't it be transitional? Like, why can't we solve the problem and get credit for ARPA at the same time and call it something else?
Well, this is Peter Mason. DDS is if you put stuff in your plan, you know, DDS is willing to review that and work with you on that. Now, whether it gets funded through ARPA or another way, and that's what we need. And then as people move out, that then gets reimbursed through ARPA. We can do that, but we need to see what those plans are, saying, okay, this is what the goal is. And so how we work through the ARPA initiative, I mean, we're pretty strict in terms of what there are right now, but if you're saying you need to open up a transition house for 3 individuals, and you know, and I'll just use Mary Pat, you can use Mary Pat's house, and this is what you're gonna do, then DDS should be looking at that, okay, let's do that, and then the ARPA plan may be, as they move out of the transition, you'll get X, Y, Z, but in the meantime, we need to fund you through the one-time process or whatever it is to get that up and going. That's all possible. There's that, you know, so it's not that what we can't do is we can't give you an incentive for moving somebody from a CLA to a transition house, because that transition house is a CLA in how it gets structured. So that can't happen, but we can do it through other means as to how to help out and get that going. So there's ways of doing it, but we just need to see what those plans are and how to work through those.
I just feel like that's a little close-minded because we're used to bringing people to forever homes and we provide your birthday cake forever. So going in as it's transition and it's not forever and there's a cutoff date, I understand congregate, but I also understand forever is what we're trying to stop.
Yep.
And I feel like we should talk about that in theory. I know it's going to end here, but I just wanted to say it.
No, but I think, you know, to try to do that through ARPA, we would then need to revise ARPA, which would then take a public hearing, which would then it would take us like 6 months to get that down the road, versus if you need to do it, we can get it done through the one-time process and we don't have to worry about all that stuff. It's a lot quicker process than trying to figure that out. So that's what I'm trying to say is, you know, we're telling everybody they need to be creative and put it in. You know, let us know what you're thinking and how we can help in terms of that.
Thank you.
Tammy.
I think that the downside of is, again, we're looking at what people are doing with people we're already supporting. So transition housing for 18 to 23, 18 to 26, where they're focusing on habilitation and having really different type of reasons for someone being in there, is something that we really, really need to look at. Many people move out of their family home to go to college at 18, and then from college, they move to their first apartment, and then from their first apartment, they move into a home. The thing is, if we're only looking at who we already serve and doing it the same way, again, you know, we're just serving the same people. If we're saying we're going to take some kids from DCF, that DCF placed, we're going to move them to a transitional home so they can learn independent skill living with some very strict boundaries around, very strict guidelines around what a transitional home is. It's going to look very different from a CLA. They're expected to make their own meals. They're expected to do their own laundry. They're not being taken care of. They're learning skills during every part of their day. I think it is something that needs to be looked at.
And I agree, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the ARPA piece to it. I mean, I think everybody keeps looking at ARPA as the end all, and it's not. And that's why, you know, we can do it other ways. And I think, you know, if the department that's the direction they want to go, then they should probably be doing RFPs to set up these transition houses. And so that's all done in a way that's contractual and stuff like that. You know, these transition plans to set up for a congregate setting to move out of congregate settings. If we're looking at something different, it's not that it can't be done. It just has to be done in a different format. The problem I see is that we're going to be there'll be a number of houses closed, so I can't say that's negative. But we have to also have our other state partner be able to work with us so that they then will be able to assist in terms of the house may need additional money, and so they would have to work through that. And you know, that's another issue that we have to figure out, is if the house is already paid for, DSS has their own way of thinking, and we need to try to encourage them to look at it differently as well. So it's not the housing piece is not just DDS at that point, but the support piece is, and we can be creative. It's not that we can't, but everybody, it just may not be through ARPA, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. So, Mary Pat, you're on mute.
Just Mary Pat from Kennedy Collective. The first question I had too about the housing. So if I had this house that I was sitting on, or as Barry Simon says, sitting on ice, and Heather wanted to rent it, can Kennedy Center be a landlord?
The problem
That's a tricky one.
Right. The problem comes is the house been paid off at this point?
No, not yet, not completely.
So I think that's a lot easier, because at that point you could probably have the house be able to be rented, and DSS would then pay the mortgage for you through the rental piece. That I can see happen until
Okay.
it gets to that 30-year mark, and then we have to deal with it on that end. But in the meantime, if it's not, then to rent it out, I don't think that would be less of an issue.
Okay. My second comment is that, you know, we have 2 transitional programs in this state that have been rather successful. You've got Vista and you've got Chapel Haven. So, you know, and if this has to be done under ARPA, then we need to approach whomever in the department and say, listen, this is a need that we're seeing, and work with DCF so we can start transitioning those kids through. And again, it may be considered congregate living, but so is going to college congregate living, right? So if there's an apartment building, you've got kids that are working through transition, and it's a, you know, at Chapel Haven, it used to be anyway, when I was there, that you had 3 years. And if you couldn't graduate the program in 3 years, then you had to go find something else. Otherwise, you graduated and moved into the community and you continue to receive supports, but they were IHS supports. So I don't think we have to recreate the wheel. We have to look at what's already there and let's figure out a way of doing it, either on smaller settings or even in a big setting.
Well, those 2 programs that you mentioned, the transitional ones,
Mm-hmm.
neither one of them are waiverable.
Why?
Just so you know.
Okay, but why? Why couldn't they
Because
be
of the
waiverable?
way that they're looking at how they want to get funded through a forum.
There's a write-up for certain things to be added to the waiver. So
Okay.
things can be added, we just have to look at definitions.
Yes, but the premise of individuals receiving the supports that they need, and being paid for those supports, and not being paid as a 1/12 payment, is not a waiverable service.
But I don't, IHS is a waiverable service.
Yes, it is. Yes.
I'm
But
confused.
the 2 you're talking about, the 2 transitional ones,
Yeah,
those aren't, they start off, especially Vista has a big house that people live in, and that hasn't been reimbursed by DDS probably in about 10, 15, 20 years, because it's an all-inclusive one rate, so you never know who's getting what services at what time. And then Chapel Haven, their apartment program is not done in a way that can be waiverable.
Hmm.
It's not saying it couldn't be, but
well,
if the
that's what I'm
if the
saying.
agencies
So,
choose the way they do that, there's only so much we can do. Heather?
So it's Heather from Marrakesh. One of the ways around the whole us renting Mary Pat's home is that if it's a CRS, then it's the people that are living there are renting from a landlord, which would be the Kennedy Collective, and they could sign the lease, and it wouldn't matter about the mortgage, correct? Because then it's not Marrakesh and DDS. It's just a landlord that has a home, because we don't check all the landlords for rent subsidy to see if they already own it or whatever. We just make sure it's fair market value. So if we're talking about CRSs, which is what my one transition home is so far, then we don't have to worry about that part about DSS and all that, correct?
I would say that's correct, but if you can get room and board, that would be better for the individuals. And if you can't, then I could see it as a CRS.
Peter,
Can't
thank
have
you for
everything.
saying that. Thank you for saying that, because that is why I can't give you my transition plan, which was for our program with the 3 apartments, because all of a sudden the parents aren't really thrilled with their kids going on food stamps and this and that, and it's just such a problem. And you just said it out loud, is one of the most major problems of going from the group home to the living in the community. And RAP certificates are so much better than rent subsidy. And Department of Housing should be giving us RAP certificates for our people. And then we're not having this discussion, because they'll have enough money for toilet paper through the end of the month. The staff don't have to bring in their toilet paper from home for them. I mean,
So
it's a real problem.
This is Peter Mason. One of the things that we're doing is we are revising the rent subsidy policy. And we're looking at a number of different pieces to this. And so one of the pieces is, right now, somebody can have up to 40% of their income go towards the rent subsidy. We're looking at putting that down to 30%, which would then give the people more money. We're
Thank
also
you.
looking at, because of the housing crisis itself, we were doing it at rent subsidy was at fair rent, and we were allowed to go up to 30% over fair rent. We're now moving that up to 40%. So there's a couple things we're doing in there that's we're looking to try to resolve some of those questions. So some of those problems. So,
And it's Heather, those are problems we brought up from day one, is getting everyone a RAP certificate or whatever it is. So they're not, now on poverty level and don't know how to get toilet paper. But the other thing is, we are stuck on waivers. I had a little small group meeting with some other execs, and we have DEMIS. DEMIS has a young adult services program. When they're 26, they have to leave, and then they go into community supports. It's the same exact thing, except they don't have to worry about that program's not waiverable. But when we wanted shared living, we wrote a waiver and we got it. Like, let's not be scared to dig in. And I know we don't have the heels, right, the manpower to dig in, but I say we should have people digging in and writing a waiver for the transitional housing, and going back to ARPA and reapplying for something. If we, now that we're in the middle of it and saying, hey, not enough people are doing it, let's look back, because there's lessons learned. Like, let's do it. Let's just fix it. I'm sure that a lot of the other providers will help with that. And then the last thing, and I don't know if this could be something that could be approved, but in order for us to do this transition correctly, we have to have people that are in charge of CLAs and CRSs and IHSs learn each other's jobs. So it's easier for someone to transfer from a CLA to an IHS, because that case manager has all 3 and they're not scared to move in. So, we're going to put some money and time into restructuring our whole organization so people have experience with all 3. So it's easier to move people to the next level and the next level. That's going to cost us money and time, but I think that would be a great project for ARPA. Probably not, because no one's going, it's not going to produce 3 people that are moving, like, that's not the goal. But the goal is for the agency to be more apt to educate and learn about, how now, when we were talking about transitioning one home, oh, well, now you can only stay with John for 6 hours, and the staff have to learn a whole new way to take data to make sure we get paid for the IHS hours, where now they're just in all 3 apartments helping people as they need help, and not as, the IHS is billed and stuff.
So that could be part of your plan, Heather. It's like, you can put the training piece in there, and whether it gets paid by ARPA or whether it gets paid by DDS shouldn't be your concern.
Okay. I'm just trying to play nice in the sandbox and get a plan in, because I feel like I joined this committee so I could have a plan. And I just feel like every time I try to put one together, something else comes up that's essential or important, or, you know, we got to get done.
And I would also say to you that if you have, if you're pretty certain on one particular part of it, you can start with that and add to it. You don't have to wait for everything to happen all at once. So, just, perfection's the enemy of good. So you got to be careful in terms of that. So look for, if you have to do it incremental, do it incremental.
That's what we'll do. Thank you.
Okay. Julia, do you have anything else?
I think that sums it up. I think to your, a little bit of a piggyback, Heather, we, for phase 2, which will be starting sort of in mid-April, we will be releasing updated transition plan templates that will be a little bit more streamlined and shorter than the phase 1 templates. So those are going through DDS review now, but as you're thinking about it, you can still submit a plan. I would encourage you to start that process, and that template can still be used in phase 2, but just as like a heads up, there will be slightly more streamlined ones, but yeah, I'll leave that there. So
It's Heather from Marrakesh. Right before this meeting, we got an email that said, you better put your plan in now. I mean, you can wait for phase 2, but you really should do it right this second. So I feel this like failure of like, we didn't do it because so just so you know, I just got that right before the meeting.
I know, and I wrote the thing. And the reason I wrote it is that we have people who are all waiting for whatever they're waiting for. It was like, we're starting to see plans come in now. I think I just saw another one come in too. So we're up to like 10 or 11. So they're coming in. And my concern is that we have so much money, but it's gonna be first come, first serve. And so you just don't want somebody to come in at the end, whether DDS is going to continue that. I have no say on that stuff. So that's the reason I'm saying that, because we also had people, I think I'll wait, and I think I'll wait. Well, don't just wait. And they also said in there, if you read the last part about being creative, it also says that about being creative. So, which is what we're talking about. Great. All right. So I've been working, actually not me, but my staff have been working on the frequently asked questions. We've got through the provider section. We're still working through the parent section. So the individuals and families, that has been a little bit difficult because a lot of it's just comments. So we're trying to put them into questions so that we can address them. So I'm halfway through that one. My staff did the first pass through, so I'm now into the second part. I'm halfway through. Once I get that done, then we'll share it with our other DDS staff, and then I should be ready to go. So what I can do is try to send a copy to you guys in advance so you can see what we're talking about. So I'll do that. The rent subsidy, I told you a couple of the things, we're definitely looking at the health and safety checklist and reviewing that as well. We're looking at, in terms of furniture and setup, we're looking at making sure that we extend furniture setup as we do in the one-time policy for CRS. So hopefully that will be coming out shortly. So then individuals will have at least $1,500 to do apartment setup. The rent subsidy is also going to be addressing the security deposit. One of the things that we found through the Deloitte report was that some of these one-time setup costs can be reimbursable through the waiver. So we'll be looking at that as to how to maximize that through the waiver, which will give it a little bit more credence to be able to do it. So that's a good thing. I do have an update on where we're at with all our initiatives, so let me just do that. One of the things that we did do, and so I'm reading this, so if somebody has a question, just interrupt me because I'm reading this and I can't see what everybody's doing. Um, so we've gone through and we've revised our Appendix K. And this is when you talk about amending stuff, when you have to go through the federal government, Heather, it's not an easy process. With the Appendix K, which is a lot of the meat and potatoes in terms of incentives, we had to go through a special approval process that was CMS. When we were looking at amending it, we were told by CMS, oh, that should be just a straight amendment and just give us what your changes are. And we were ready to go with that in January. At which point they said, no, you have to go through the whole amendment process. And then they gave us feedback, so we had to revise that. So we now have a public hearing that's going to be in May. So first we had to do a 30-day public comment section, then we have to do a public hearing. Once the public hearing is done, then we can submit it to CMS, and that will take 90 days, up to 90 days to get approved. So if we started this in January, we're now talking it'll be September by the time we get this approved. So it's not a timely thing when we're looking at amending waivers. It can be done, but it takes a lot of patience and a lot of work to get through that. But we've worked through this, and so what we've done is one of the things we heard from providers is that, this is taking a lot of time to write these plans. And so we wanted to make sure that we were able to provide resources to the agency for that. So, and I have to caveat that, as long as these get approved, and we're anticipating them being approved, but we can't do anything until they're officially approved. But once they are approved, they are retro back to February 2nd. And since we had no one put in a plan before that, this should apply to anybody who puts in a plan as long as it gets approved. So we've done this in terms of, depending on the size of the plan, if the agency is looking at just doing one agency program that they're going to revamp or restructure, we would then provide an outcome payment of $7,500. If they're looking at doing two agency programs, we would then provide a outcome payment of $12,500. And if they do 3 or more programs or an agency-wide restructuring plan, they would get $17,500. So hearing what people said, we were trying to address some of those issues. The other thing we tried to address is that we had an outcome payment for every time somebody moved in residential. And so we've added that now for day. So now there's an outcome payment for if an individual moves from a congregate day program to a more independent setting, they would receive a $15,000 outcome payment. So we're trying to hear what providers had to say, and we're working through those. Another thing that we looked at is we have a number of initiatives that we're trying to encourage. And so one of those, if a provider is able to complete one of these goals, they would then receive an incentive payment. So one of them is if they restructure a residential setting to support new individuals with specialized or complex medical or behavioral clinical needs. So Tammy, this would include the individuals from DCF. So if a provider looks at restructuring one of their group homes to meet this, and they successfully do that, they would receive an incentive payment of $33,000. We looked at the same thing for restructuring a day program that would focus more on employment. We looked at restructuring a day program for individuals with specialized or complex medical or behavioral needs. And the other one we looked at in terms of day program was if they we're ending some kind of a sub-minimum wage agreement in a program, we would then look at an incentive payment for that as well. And each one of those would, each one that they complete would get a $33,000 incentive payment. We have, we're trying to encourage providers to submit the workforce survey through the National Core Indicators. And because the more data we get in terms of the workforce, the better we'll be able to lobby for additional money and know what's happening out there in the community or in the provider world. So a provider who does complete that survey would receive an incentive payment of $2,500. We have a couple of other incentives we set up was for an incentive to for providers that have their staff complete assistive technology training. So if they decide that they want to do this through their plan for assistive technology, they would receive an incentive payment of $3,000 per person, up to a maximum of $30,000. And the last incentive that we changed had to do with for individual supported employment. So if a provider wanted to do some kind of certification, ACRES is one of those that is out there. If they were to do that, once again, we would create an incentive payment of $3,000 per person who achieves that training, and up to a maximum of $30,000. So those are our changes that we had for the Appendix K. I don't know if anybody has any questions on that. Heather?
Hi, it's Heather from Marrakesh. Just, would we have to apply ahead of time to like do the workforce indicators? One of my staff
No, not for
heard that.
Yeah, not,
They're
you,
like,
you wouldn't
you
have to
told
do
us those were mandatory anyway. They didn't know that they weren't, and we just have always completed them. So I just wanted to make sure.
yeah, but people don't listen to us. So this way, if you do it, it doesn't have to be part of the plan. Just as if you do it, let us know and we can reimburse it for all that.
And is that the same with the other behavioral and medical needs? Like that, as we take people in to group homes, can we tell you, or do we have to tell you ahead of
No,
time?
that has to be part, that would have to be part of the plan, because it has to be, this is our goal, we're doing this, and this is our plan.
I guess we're just not good at planning. We just go with we go with who needs something immediately and we work around it. So
yeah, no,
that's
this
a
has
tough
to be
one.
this has to be planful. All right. Some more updates that we have. Let me get that. We did all that stuff. Let's see. So we've issued 4 notice of opportunity grants for assistive technology. One was for individuals and families, and at this point, I believe we're up to, I think it was like 56 applications from individuals. We have one for providers who are looking at doing, asking for assistive technology equipment. We have 7 providers that put in for that. And then we have one for employment and the use of AT equipment in for an employment setting. So that went out a couple of weeks ago. And for the DDS side, we're looking at setting up assistive technology training. So there's a certification program out of California. It's like a 12-week program. And so we're looking at trying to get at least 100 of our staff trained in that. At this point, I think we have 92 applications. It's 2 to 3 hours of training a week for 10 weeks, not 12, but 10 weeks. We're also looking at putting out something for staff as well, for the provider staff. And so that hopefully will be going out within the next week or two, because the more people we can get who know and understand what assistive technology is, the more we can use that, and the more we'll be able to have people receive supports in the manner that they feel is the most appropriate for them. We issued an assistive technology request for proposal, and what we're looking for are organizations that will come in and do the assessment of individuals for assistive technology. This could be uh, this this could be 1, 2, or 3 providers. If one provider could do it for the whole state, we would do one provider. Otherwise, we could break it up into the ones for each region. They would then become the designated agency that would provide the assistive technology assessment. And when they do that, they would then submit what the equipment would, once they do the application and determine this is what the individual needs, they would then submit to the case manager a list of equipment that would go to our Pratt teams. Once Pratt agrees with that, then that same company then goes back to that same company. They then would order the equipment. They then would install the equipment, and then they would also be in charge of the training staff for that. So it's almost like a one-stop shop for assistive technology. We're looking at project-based supportive housing. We had issued an RFP for that. We ended up getting a number of applications. I think the committee's down to awarding those applications. And what this will allow us to do is to try to set up supportive housing within a currently operating apartment complex. Up to now, we've been doing it through it's been called a project-based one, so it's been starting from the ground up, and usually those take like 2 years. So if we can get this done in a way, then we'd be able to do the housing grant and to establish supportive housing a lot sooner and stuff. So I think that's my update as of now. If anybody has any comments, questions, Heather?
Sorry, feels like my meeting today. Heather from Marrakesh. I did try to call the landlord for a place that's been very good. 2 people are renting, and we were thinking other people could move in. And it's just like when it's like a whole company and a different property manager, it's just really hard to get them even on the phone to talk about, oh, well, future rentals, and we could do this and we'll pay for it. It's not, it would happen if I sent someone and said, oh, go look for an apartment there, and they'll find someone and they'll get it. But just for an agency, when it's a big owner of an apartment building and they have different property managers, to kind of make a deal like that, it's been harder for me to do that. I tried because I thought we had a perfect setting, but I'm not getting any calls back. So I'm like, we'll rent your apartment for you for 3 years. It's a great thing, and we'll be there to help support people. I mean, I don't understand, but I guess again, with just people being short, even not only in our field but in real estate and stuff, it's just, I think people are just. But if that happens, that's something that I will eventually do, whether it's an RFP or not, because it doesn't really have to be an RFP. It's just more people will rent there, and eventually it would be a cluster. So.
Yeah, I mean,
I guess to get us thinking of it.
Yeah, I think the to do it through the RFP, I think then there's more security in terms of the housing vouchers and stuff like that. So, and I know they wanted to get 9 of these, and I don't think they've hit the 9 mark. So there could be a second round that comes out. So, Tammy?
This is Tammy from DDS. Just a question about the assistive technology. Who's doing the back end of it to make sure the technology is being used and assessing if it's actually being implemented, and how is equipment going to be recycled to use for other people, so we don't have to keep buying equipment after equipment for people and then find out later that it's never used and it's in a storage room or a closet. So how are we ensuring that's taking place. I mean, the Pratt process is easy. Pratt's not going to look at an assessment done by somebody and go, no, we're not going to buy them a Ring doorbell. We don't like that. Like, that's not what's going to happen. But how are we going to know that that computer is being used, that tablet is being used, that, you know, the other equipment that's being put in the home? How's that assessment going to take place, and where are we going to recycle that equipment to be used for others? And how's the back end of that going to work?
Yeah, and that's a good question. This is Peter Mason. So there's a couple of things that we're looking at. One of the things that we're working our way through is an RFP for a company to establish a data software for us. So they'll be able then to know what was purchased and where it is. Part of that would also be to look at how do we then survey to make sure that that equipment's being used on a regular basis. So we are looking at that piece, and I know I've seen part of that RFP yet, but it's going to go out. So we're trying to make it so that it's an electronic piece to it. In the meantime, those companies that do come in, they'll be setting up a database to this, so we'll know all the equipment that's out there. One of the things that we're looking at doing, and we've got the list already, is DDS is going to be setting up their own lending library. So the idea would be that before people purchase stuff, they'd be able to then try the different equipment to make sure that they use it and can use it and want to use it. So I know we have a whole list of equipment that we'll be having on our end that will be able to be lent out. We are in the process of hiring an assistive technology director whose role will be just all the stuff you just said to make sure that, you know, people are using it and using it appropriately and continue to use it. The issue of recycling it becomes an issue because when that stuff gets bought, it's going to be bought by the individual. It's not going to be bought by the agency. So it becomes the individual's equipment. And so we would have to work through the process of, okay, if this person's not going to use it, do we buy it back? How does that work? So I think, you know, that's something that we'll be working through with the assistive technology director when that comes in. So.
Or we can look at something like Neat Marketplace, where they don't need it anymore. They're willing to donate it, and other people can purchase it at a reduced cost.
Yep. Yeah, there's a number of things we can do. So, but it's not like we're not thinking of that. We're trying to work through these processes. Right now we're in the mode of, yeah, we've got to, you know, if somebody wants it, we got to make sure that they get the equipment. But then the second part is, okay, what happened to it? What's it doing? Are they still using it? And blah, blah, blah. So. Anybody else have any questions in terms of all that? I don't know where my compatriot in crime, Pam Fields, is. She said she was coming. I don't know what happened to her. But if there's nothing else, then we'll call an end to this meeting. All right. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
Bye.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
Yeah. Thanks for all your comments.